we're about to turn some time over to Frank Divers. And Frank is an incredible guy. And I've known Frank for, oh gosh, let's see. Frank, we've known each other for a couple years, and I have always been so impressed by your passion for the subject that we're going to be talking about. I want to just, before we bring you on, I'm going to launch a poll for the people that are here with us on Zoom conference. And so I'm just going to launch a poll about estate planning real quick. And we're going to ask how many of you currently have an estate plan that's already in place to take care of your estate and your loved ones once you leave. How many of you have a full estate plan? Maybe some of you just have a will. And how many of you maybe don't have any estate plan at all so far? And it looks like with this group that we have on right now, we've got a couple people that do have full estate plans. We have a couple that maybe just have a will. And we've got some folks that don't have any estate planning at all. So this is going to be a good opportunity for us to share this info. Now, again, just on kind of a personal note, having interacted with Frank for a couple years now, I could tell you this is a man who is truly 100% concerned about this topic, and I have learned a lot. I've learned a lot from him. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I've learned a lot from him, and I could tell you that you are going to learn a lot from him. My parents were in Las Vegas when we were doing an event a number of years back, and they heard Frank and some of his partners speak. And I was so thankful that my parents decided to finally do something that they hadn't done for a very long time, which was my parents are getting older. And so they invested in an estate plan because they realized that there needed to be certain things that were taken care of. I'm sure Frank will share some stories about some of the follies of not having an estate plan in place. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of who Frank is, Frank is really a seasoned entrepreneur. He's a veteran business guy. He's been, over the last 40 years, been in business. He's founded 7 companies that have encompassed everything from really all kinds of different business disciplines: manufacturing, setting up distribution for programs and products and services. And Frank's accomplishments include conceptualizing and launching one of the first sports talk health-related radio programs in the U.S. And also, one of the things that's really great about Frank is he has a lot of philanthropic commitments that he's made. This is a man who really cares about people, and he really cares about the subject. And I'm excited for you to be able to hear from him about estate planning. Frank, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for jumping on and for being here. And I'm going to turn the time over to you, my friend, so that you can bless these people. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much. You can hear me? I'm unmuted. Right. I'm good. So first of all, I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank Steve Earle for the opportunity to join you in your intensive tonight. Your commitment to educating people and helping people is something that speaks volumes as to what your characters are and what your commitment to doing the right thing by people is really all about. So for the sake of time, I'm going to get right to it and get into the subject matter that we've joined with you on tonight. But I'm going to start off by quoting a well-known author. I'm sure most everyone on this webinar have heard of him, and that's Stephen Covey. Stephen is a accomplished writer and publisher, and has been very successful in his own right in his businesses. In one of his most popular books, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he talks about each one of those 7 habits, and one of those habits that Stephen addresses is called "Start with the End in Mind." Now, as goal-oriented individuals, which I'm sure everyone that's involved in this presentation tonight, you're all goal-oriented. You're involved in this business because you're building and growing your estate via real estate, and I'm sure you have other perhaps interest involved in your estate building. But you set goals. This is what I want to accomplish when you're retirement planning for your later years in life through the wise investments that you're making in real estate now. You've got goals that you set out there. So the goal is exactly what Stephen Covey's talking about, and that's starting with the end in mind. So when you think about the end as it relates to life, we all have a life cycle. And we're all going down that life cycle, that line of our life. And where we are in that line is where we don't know. We have no idea. All we know is that with each breath that we take, we get one step closer to that end of the line when we're actually stepping off of the line at the very end. So that's really the essence of estate planning. I was with a friend of mine. We was doing a presentation not too long ago, and he asked a question of the audience, and it was a little bit of a, I guess you might say, a trick question. We live in a world of analytics today, so when you're evaluating probabilities, you're looking at, okay, what's the probability that this investment, what's the probability that that investment, all of these different things that are out there. And the question was, what's the probability that that someone's going to die? And people in the audience were kind of looking at each other, and they were, saying, well, and he stopped them and he kind of laughed and he said, the probability is 100%. So that's kind of an awakening thought that we're obviously all aware of it, but how many of us really want to walk around and consciously think about the fact that we are looking at the reality of an end of life? But it is reality, and it's one of those things that we're going to face one of these days. That's where estate planning comes in. And what we have found over the years is that very, very few people really understand what estate planning is all about. Many people have heard of a last will and testament. And they believe that that's really what an estate plan is all about. And true, it is a very important part of it, but it's not a comprehensive estate plan. So what is a comprehensive estate plan? We've actually held focus groups on this, and we've asked audiences, what is the real essence of estate planning? And very, very, very few. If I told you less than 2% of the people really understood, I wouldn't be exaggerating at all that number. It's a very, very small number. So then when you get into talking about it, and we talk about what are the different documents that go into a comprehensive estate plan, then that's when we begin to see the eyes open. We begin to see the minds open as to what the possibilities are that you can accomplish with estate plan. One myth that I want to eliminate right now, and that is the myth that some people hold about, well, having an estate plan, having a living trust, that's about planning to die. That's about dying. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's about your life. It's called a living trust because it's something that you own and you control for the rest of your life, and you're able to manage your assets in that living trust and have them there. It's kind of like the house. I use the analogy of a refrigerator. So we all have refrigerators in our home, and we can go to them. We can open them at will, and we can put things in the refrigerator, and then we can take things out of the refrigerator, and then we can put in more things, new things, different things, and we can take out other things that are in there. The same thing applies to a living trust, and that is, it's kind of like your own refrigerator. You're able to put things into it. You're able to take things out of it. You're able to add new things. You're able to take out old things. It's your document. It's a living document that goes with you for the rest of your life. So why should we really be thinking seriously about this? I want to dive into that subject. First of all, it's especially when you're goal-minded individuals, like I'm sure all of you are on this presentation tonight in the intensive, and that is, you're building your estate, you're investing in real estate, you're growing your asset base, you're building for your future because you've learned either through experience or through the education that you've received that real estate is a great place to put your money to work for you. It's one thing about us as individuals. We can only work so many hours a day, and we have to go rest, and we have to go eat, and we have to take care of personal matters. And so it's during our working hours of our life that we as individuals are able to accumulate wealth. Real estate can work for you 24/7. That's the nice thing about making investments and building your asset estate, is that it can work for you 24/7. And I learned many, many years ago, and I'm sure you've all heard this, they're not making any more of it. What's out there is out there, and there's not going to be any more. Although I guess someone raised their hand one time in a presentation and said, yeah, but I heard someplace, I think it was Abu Dhabi or whatever, that they actually created islands. I guess anything is possible in that respect, but the reality is they're not creating anymore. And as a result of that, it's supply and demand. And as our populations continue to grow, it's going to create more demand and less of the availability of the real estate that's out there, which is, again, the purpose of looking at real estate as a great investment. So estate planning, a reality that a lot of people don't realize, and that is we all have a plan. And that plan is either self-directed, something that you create and you control, or it's one that the government has for you. And when people understand that, just the whole thought of the government having control over something that you've worked for, you've sweated for, and you've created and you've built up and you've grown, for the government to have any authority over that, any authority whatsoever, doesn't make a lot of sense. And when people hear that, it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't like that. Well, what is it you don't like about it? I just don't like the fact that the government has any say-so over my estate, the estate that I build through my lifetime. I don't like that. Well, then the only thing you can do to eliminate that is to create your own plan, because you are going to have a plan one way or the other. There is no getting around it unless you lose everything, you give away everything you got, and you become destitute financially, and you have no assets, you have no money, you have nothing. Then I guess a plan is a moot point. But that certainly isn't a conversation that any of us that are on this program in the intensive tonight have any interest in even thinking about that. So you're going to have it. So let's think for a minute about the government's plan. What does that mean? Well, one of the things that kicks into the government's plan is if you die without a will, then you become what's called intestate. So in other words, the laws of the state that you reside in, they kick in, and then your assets are going to be distributed according to succession. So that could be the closest of kin, and then down from there. And the people of the government system, they have to trace all of that down and make sure it all gets distributed, assuming no one from the family would be appointed as the administrator of that estate. And what I'm giving you folks, this is not law, this is just education. I mean, you can go out online and you can Google these things that I'm talking to you about, these terms, and you can find all the education that you want that's out there. So that's what's going to happen. If you have a will, then you die testate, which means then that your estate will go to a probate court, assuming it's got any size to it whatsoever. It's going to go to a probate court, and then an administrator of your estate will be appointed if it's not already been aligned out in the last will and testament that you've got. And that person then would be responsible for managing that estate through the probate court process. That's where people get stumbled up. That's where they get caught in that just hearing the term probate court, well, that doesn't really define what it's all about. It doesn't really give a clear picture as to what that really means. But anybody that's ever gone through probate or managed an estate through probate, they can tell you that it's not a cakewalk. They can tell you that it's not fun. It is very stressful. It's very time intensive. It can last for months to years, depending on the estate, depending on if there's any questions about the estate. Questions can come about from someone disputing something that would have been laid out in the will. You never know what can happen. But just to understand that it's not a cakewalk, here in the state of Arizona, you have 90 days to go. And again, all this information is out online. This is pure education. This is not law. This is just education. You will see that that in the state of Arizona, you've got to complete 11 forms, 11 different forms that the administrator of that estate has got to complete. And all of this process begins once this is filed with the probate court, and there has to be a fee paid, and that fee paid to the probate court in advance of anything happening will vary from state to state. That's something that if you are inclined to look it up, you can look it up online for the particular state that you're in. So there's a fee that has to be paid. There are forms that have to be completed, and they have to be completed in fine detail, and then they have to be given back to the probate court. That person also, that's the administrative authority over the trust, if you will, over the estate, if you will. They've got to file notices. They've got to advertise notices and let all creditors know that this party has deceased. And those creditors have a certain amount of time that they have to file their claim so that they can get paid. And again, these things can drag out over months and in some cases years. All this has to happen, and it all has to be managed. And during this time, everything in that estate is locked up. It's frozen, Many times you have people that pass away and the heirs to the estate are not able to get to the liquidity of the estate. And as a result of that, many times they have to reach into their own bank accounts or their own credit cards and cover a lot of the end of life expenses that do come into play. And then waiting for that estate to settle so that they can get reimbursed. This happens more times than not all across the United States. So just understanding the rigorous process of going through probate. It's not just simply saying, the estate's going to go through probate court. That's just a simple statement. It is a very intense, stressful process that can cause conflicts in family. It can cause families to have split-minded thoughts as to how things should be done. The bottom line is it's just not good. So how do you avoid that? The way to avoid probate court, very simply, is through a living trust. So a living trust becomes kind of the heart and soul of an estate plan, a comprehensive estate plan. It's there because it is not a wish document, which is what a last will and testament is. It's not a last will and testament is not a contract. It's what I wish to happen upon my death, versus a living trust is a contract. So now you as the grantor, or if it's a husband and wife as the owners of that trust, then you can decide during your living moments how you want everything to be done. And the interesting part, as I stated, it's a living trust. So you have control over it for the rest of your life. As life circumstances can sometimes dictate change, you're able to go back in and you're able to make those changes so that you keep your documents current based on your wishes and your intentions. It's not something that made one decision today, I'm stuck with it forever, I can never go back and change it. Not true. With a living trust, you can do that. So a living trust then empowers your family to be able to keep your estate out of probate court. You just bypass the government. In the game of Monopoly, what is it? You go straight to jail, do not pass go. Well, with a living trust, you don't go straight to the government probate court. You pass go, you collect, you move on, and it can provide some instant liquidity to the heirs of that estate to cover things that need to be covered. And there are many different variations that you can put into the living trust, and all of that is covered when you go through that process. So let's talk about the process of setting up a living trust. Basically, a living trust, the process consists largely of question and answers. So before any documents can be created, there has to be questions answered. Well, those questions are designed or directed to you and how you want things done. And you go through those questions and you answer the questionnaire. And then based on how you answer the questionnaire through our platform, the software is able to go into a massive database. Took over 2 years just to build the database, and then it's ongoing, keeping it current. The software is able to go into that database and pull the language based on where you live, the particular laws of the state that you live in. And within seconds, as we all know, software operates very, very quickly. It's able to generate a living trust for you. And that's really cool to think that you can get it that quickly done and completed. And when you do, when you have that living trust completed, and you've gone through the funding process, which I'm going to explain that very briefly to you here in a second as well. Now you know that your estate is managed through that living trust, and it's not going to be subject to probate court. It's also going to be affected by the funding process, which I'll cover in just a second as well. But the other documents that you get in your comprehensive estate plan are your advanced healthcare directives. Very, very important to have this. We don't have these type things because we hope something's going to happen to us. It's like, why do people have insurance? Because they just want the peace of mind to know that I've got insurance. It's not that I want to get a claim against the insurance. It's that it just makes good sense to have it because it's given me that peace of mind. Well, the same thing about an advanced healthcare directive. If, God forbid, anything ever happened and you were in an accident or you had a stroke or your heart attack or whatever, and things have to move quickly, well, if there's not an advanced healthcare directive there, then it can create a nightmarish experience for the family of that person that had that event in their life when they're at a hospital or an emergency room. It's not nice. So having an advanced healthcare directive, very, very important. Then you've got an advanced, a medical directive, so that in the event if you were to become incapacitated or whatever, someone else that you've appointed, that you trust, that knows what your feelings are, would be there to be able to make decisions for you. And then lastly would be a durable power of attorney over finance. Same thing applies here. It's not that you hope that one day that durable power of attorney over finance is going to have to be used. You have it there in the event that, God forbid, again, something happened, you're in an accident or whatever, that it's going to be there because you planned for it to be there. And it's there to make life easier for those people that are around you, that you care about and you love and you cherish as your family, so that they can keep things going during the time that you're not able to do it. So all of these documents go into your comprehensive estate plan. I mentioned funding your trust. Very important subject. We've been told many times by people all across the country in the field of law that while a lot of people get their living trust done, they don't go the next step. It's kind of like the book Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure most of you have either heard of it or read it. And if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's been around forever. But I remember back many, many years ago, I was at a program and the speaker was talking about Think and Grow Rich. And he pointed out something that I thought was pretty fascinating. And that is, most people only read half of the book. And it's like, well, what do you mean? You only read half of the book, Think and Grow Rich. And his comment to that was, they only read the part about grow rich. They don't read the part about think and. So that applies to what I'm saying here about funding a trust. Getting a living trust done is like grow rich without the think and. So the think and, as it applies to funding a trust, what that means is that you go through the step process to put your titled assets into the trust name. By doing that, again, those titled assets are not going to be subject to probate court. Now, let's say for a second that you do get a trust, or you've got a trust right now, a living trust, and you've not funded your properties, you've not funded other titled assets and other assets that you've got into that trust. Then that trust, for all intents and purposes, is like a hollow document. Or let's say that you put some of your assets in there, but you've not kept it current. We had a case where a gentleman, his planner actually worked with him and said, hey, you need to get your living trust done. He went through the process, he got it done, they got it all funded. And then unbeknownst to the planner that was working with that individual, the gentleman went out and he purchased a bunch of municipal bonds without telling anyone. And then he passed away like a year later. And all of a sudden his family finds out that he's got all of these municipal bonds, $200,000 worth of municipal bonds, if my memory is correct. And they called us and they said, so what about? Well, it was never put into the trust. So that would be subject to a probate court. So you also get a pour over will, which with our estate plan, with the comprehensive estate plan, which takes those non-titled assets and it pours it all into your living trust. Again, the key thing is to get it funded. And with our platform at Estate Docs Pro, we've actually got a self-directed funding kit that demystifies the whole process of making sure that your trust does get funded. And obviously we're here to support and work with our people, which we do all across the country. And I would say that two things that we have a real proud claim to fame for. Number one is we do give people a peace of mind that money can't buy. And it's the peace of mind and a gift that keeps on giving even after they've passed away. And the second thing that we're very proud of, and that's our commitment to customer and client services. Our motto is we're always here to serve. And that means to serve your interest and to make sure that we've done everything in our power to make sure that your estate plan is exactly what it needs to be, and it's exactly the way you want it to be, including in the future when you want to make changes to it. So there's so many reasons, especially when you're in the business such as you are, and that is building your asset base, growing it up. Why in the world would you ever consider doing something like that without what Stephen Covey says, and that is start with the end in mind. And that is get your estate, the state, real estate, everything that you've got, get it all organized into one tangible asset that you've got, and that is your living trust. and the other accompanying documents that go along with that, with the trust being the real heart and soul of that estate plan, because that's where you go. Like I use the analogy of the refrigerator. That's where you're going to put things in and they take them out, and it's going to go with you for the rest of your life. And so that when we do reach that 100% fact that we are going to pass away, we've taken care of those things that will mean so much to the family. And another analogy I like to use, especially as parents and grandparents, it's one great way to show our parenting skills and our commitment to parenting to our children and our grandchildren, is that we take the step and we get it done, and we don't leave it to happenstance, and we don't leave it to them to take care of, and we don't procrastinate and say, oh, I'm going to do that. I've really been thinking about doing that, but for whatever reason, we don't have that round to it. We don't get around to it, and we don't do it. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to get it done. I could tell you so many cases. One case I'll tell you about. We got a call on a Thursday from one of our people in Tampa, Florida, and her brother, a 54-year-old retired colonel from the Air Force. He had two minor children. I forget the ages now. And he had gone to a doctor to get a checkup like on Tuesday of that week, and they found that he had a melanoma in his eye, one of his eyes, and not good. That's not the kind of report that you want to get. It's like Matt Sorensen saying you don't want to get that notice from the IRS. Bad mail, bad report for this gentleman to get that. He was 54, I think, at the time. So, and then when they studied it, I think they did an MRI on it or whatever process, medical procedure, to see how intense it was. It was bad. And so the doctors then advised this gentleman that he should get his affairs in order. And this was on a Wednesday that this all happened, after Tuesday of having this exam. Wednesday, the physician directed the gentleman to get his affairs in order because they wanted to operate on him the following Tuesday. And that based on what they were looking at, that it may not be a good outcome. So the gentleman, obviously, he's panicking. What am I going to do? And so his sister actually, is involved with our organization. She called me on a Thursday and she said, what can we do to help my brother get his affairs in order? And we just said, look, you get it all registered with us, and you go through that questionnaire, you get all that stuff done, and you get it to us. We'll get it all done. And obviously the software works very, very quickly. We'll have it reviewed and we'll have it back to you by Monday morning of the following week prior to the Tuesday where the surgery was going to take place. And all you have to do then is just make sure that you got everything lined up to get the real estate transferred into the trust, which is a matter of a warranty deed or quitclaim deed, getting that filled out, getting that, all the documents notarized, all the witnesses done, have all that lined up to take place in your office on Monday in Tampa. And then by Monday evening, when the county recorder's office closes in the county there in Tampa, then all the real estate properties will have been transferred into it. All the other documents would have been done so that Tuesday morning when your brother goes into surgery, he can at least go in with a peace of mind to know that everything was done. And we got it done. It was pretty much unheard of for anybody to be able to move that fast, but we got it done. And the family was so thankful. It brought them to tears when we told them we could do it and we could move that quickly. So it's not something to procrastinate on. It's one of the greatest forms of peace of mind you personally will ever have, and one of the greatest forms of peace of mind you will ever give your family. So I'm gonna wrap it up with that. I'm also Kevin, if you want to come back on, then I'll give everyone that's involved in the program tonight a little bit of insight as to a special opportunity that we want to offer to all of the members of your organization as part of our professional courtesies and working with you, some preferential treatment. I know we've done through your organization, we've taken care of this for hundreds of people over the years. And it's been a real blessing to be able to do that and to get the accomplishment feedback that we've received has been priceless for us. But we want to provide a special opportunity in light of our relationship with you and out of a preferential treatment, I'm going to give you some information right now. First of all, if you've already decided or you're going to decide that you want to get it done, all you need to do is go to our website, www.estatedocspro.com/the letter A/my name, Frank. And what we're going to do then, it'll put you in where you can actually purchase now. And our plan, which is $1,895, I'm going to give you a code that you will be able to put into that. And that code is DFY. Wonder where we got those that acronym. So you'll put that.
Sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, I thought you might say it. So you put that promo code in there, and this much I promise you, you're going to be shocked. I'm not even going to tell you what the preferred pricing is going to be for you, but you will be shocked when you look at it. I promise you, you'll go, wow, this is what they're going to do for us because we're a member of this great organization. If you have questions or you want to talk with me, I'm going to give you my direct line. That's 602-290-2697. Or if you want to email me, my email address is frank@estatedocspro.com. So there you have it. There's your promo code that's going to shock you when you're going to see the special opportunity that we're giving you through our great relationship with your organization and what we've been able to do over the years for hundreds of people that are into building their estates through real estate. And if you haven't done it, now's the time to do. Now's the time to make the commitment to yourself that procrastination is no longer a part of my life. I'm on a path of building a great estate and becoming one of the 7 effective habits of highly successful people, not just successful, but highly successful people. And the one attribute that they have is they start with the end in mind. And I encourage you to do that. I couldn't encourage you enough. So there you have it. Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you if you want to, if there are any lingering questions out there that you would like to fly by me right now, then I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, it's been a real joy to speak to your group tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Frank. Now, Frank, I just want to make sure that everybody has the right information. The website was, and this will go out in an email to everybody. The website was www.estatedocspro.com/A/ and then Frank. And then that's going to get them to the place where they can invest in the estate plan. And then the promo code was DFY. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Now, Frank did share with me the other day what they are willing to do for folks that are associated with DFY. And it is sort of shocking in terms of how much of an unbelievably steep discount you can get on something that is so vital and so important. Frank, and then the email for Frank was frank@estatedocspro.com. And what was the phone number one more time, Frank? It was 602-290
2697.
2697. So his phone number, 602-290-2697. And this really is an incredible opportunity. It's funny, Frank, I think about this sometimes, and maybe I even heard you say this one time, but I often am sort of taken aback by how many people invest in things like homeowners insurance and car insurance. Now, I know it seems like those things are mandated, but I'm always shocked at how much money people are willing to spend on things in the event that something might happen. Right? In that there's an eventuality that maybe something's going to happen. Maybe I get in a car accident. Maybe something happens to my home, and we will literally pour thousands and thousands of dollars into something in the event that something bad happens. Yet we all know that at some point we will be taken from this place, and death is knocking. As morbid as that sounds, it's real. Yet so few of us are prepared for when that day comes to leave something to our family and to not make our family go through the stress and the struggles and the difficulties that would come if we don't have a proper estate plan, if we don't have a living trust. And it really is shocking how few of us do that. Is that kind of what you guys see, that it's a fairly small percentage of folks that are really prepared?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Very small. I mean, I think about 54% of people have a last will and testament. This would be people over the age of 60. But again, that's just one piece of it. That still doesn't eliminate probate court. And I will tell you that in some states, just the application fee to file in probate court will cost just about as much as going ahead and getting a comprehensive estate plan done, so that you don't have to go there, not even considering the cost of probate. The cost of probate can be amazing. Everybody heard of the artist called Prince that passed away in 2016 up in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Right.
He died without any documents, and that is still caught up in court, and it will cost his estate probably at least $100 million, if not more. Not mentioning the time factor. There was a death in the Disney estate. I know for a fact the son-in-law of Walt Disney lives here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've met him. I've got to know him, and there's still some battling over the estate of Walt Disney. And just think about that.
Wow.
It's a wow. So you just never know. I mean, it can. This is something I did one day, and it shocked me. I Googled how many people have died in the United States so far this year, and there's actually a website out there that's clicking like a time clock, and it not only tells you how many people that have passed away in the United States so far, right to this date, right to this minute, but it also breaks it down into the categories. And one of the categories, I think, is even they fell out of bed. so it's like, what? They actually count that? Yes, they do. Or they swallowed something the wrong way. And so there's any numbers of ways. So it's kind of eye-opening to look at that ticking time clock, if you will, as to the numbers of people that are passing away every second. You're literally sitting there watching that screen, and you'll see the numbers change as you're watching, just because it is that current on knowing when people pass away. It's just a little something that people might want to humor themselves and look up sometimes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Frank, thank you so much for coming in, for sharing.
Pleasure.
And we'll make sure that all this information goes out in an email so that you guys have the promo code and you have Frank's contact info. With that, Frank, thank you so much. Before we let you go, let me just make sure we don't have any questions. If you do have a question for Frank or on anything regarding estate planning, you could click the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to ask a question. It doesn't look like we have any right now, which means you just did a great job, Frank.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
It looks like we're okay. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll let you go be with your family. But thank you so much, Frank. Really,
my pleasure. Have a great evening. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.